In today's deep dive, we get to break down what's happening with Nico Harrison, the embattled Mavericks general manager. But before we take the deep dive, our quick five. One, should phones be banned from sporting events? Two, why Deion Sanders might be going too far in Colorado. Three, pro sports that are bending the knee to Trump. Four, Aaron Rodgers continues to disappoint everybody. Five, teams should really take notes on the Oklahoma City Thunder's rebuild. I'm Jason Kander. I'm joined by Adisu Demisi. Welcome back to The Game Within, where we talk about the business and politics of sports and how each shapes what happens on the field. All right, first in our quick five, the Masters Tournament phone ban gives viewers and players a break from the hyper online world. Should more tournaments follow suit? So, Adisu, before we get into this, let's get the background here. The phone ban employed by the Masters was widely hailed for improving both the tournament's in-person experience and TV coverage. The PGA Championship, US Open, and Open Championship will continue to allow cell phones this year, albeit with restrictions. When we start with this, before we even get into the merits of this, how many, like off the top of your head, how many experiences are there in your life where you are expected to put your phone away, and how many of those do you look forward to?
It's a great question. The answer is essentially zero. Ironically, my wife and I were watching the Warriors game on Sunday night, and in the fourth quarter, literally like in between the third and the fourth quarter, she said, "Let's put our phones away and just try to not double screen this and like pay attention to the game." So that's the last time I did it. But like the answer is never. And to the extent that I do it, I don't look forward to it. I have like an itchy, trigger finger in my thumb, my left
Uh-huh.
thumb. So with that said, I have a buddy who went to the Masters who can't stop talking about it 2 weeks ago, and he said it was phenomenal. Just the feeling of presence, right? That he had there, and I think we have a picture. I don't know if you already put it up, Philip, but for the video viewers of sort of what it looked like for Rory McIlroy when he
Mhm.
hit the winning putt, and it's like for the folks listening, not a camera in sight, not a phone lifted up, not an accidental flash or yeah, a flashlight on it versus uh, you know in the other majors and basically every other sporting event in the world. People are basically watching it through. I do this myself at the Warriors game sometimes. You know, people are actually watching it through their phones or
Right. Yeah. Here's a picture of
can record
Tiger,
it.
and it's
Yeah.
everybody behind him is just looking through their phone. I mean, shit, you could pull a picture of like a youth sports event, and the parents in the background, it's going to look like that with everybody, because everybody, there's sometimes people want to preserve the memories. Sometimes it's just like, well, grandparents want to know what happened in the game.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I'm not against people using their phones, but I do say, this is going to sound like old man at the club here, but like when I go to concerts now, in particular, that's where and sports games are analogous to this, but like it really is people capturing it for social media purposes and not
Right.
for experiencing. And like I do it too. I'm totally guilty. I'm not judging or anything like
Yeah.
this, but you do lose something in it, I think. And so the Masters is as traditional a thing as we have in pro sports, probably. So it would make sense that they would be the pioneers of this, but I don't hate it. I don't know. I think um, I don't know. What do you think? I think it's particularly possible, I guess, in a golf tournament where like you can really distract people in the 3 seconds when you're actually doing the
Yeah.
sport and hitting the ball. It'd be weird if it were like at a basketball game or you know a baseball game with continuous action or more continuous action. But I don't know. What do you think? I think it's a good thing. I think probably.
I, I have the same phantom attachment to my phone that you do. Like, I will
Your
make
thumb starts
right. I will make the
wiggling.
conscious choice oftentimes to put it in the, particularly like in the evenings I'm with my kids, and I understand, like, don't feel the pull of your phone. So I'll put it in one room, I'll go into the other. My daughter's 4, so like I really, I'm like, sometimes I say to myself, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna nail the next 10 minutes of being a dad. Like, I'm just gonna nail it. And I will. And then around minute 11, I notice I'm like, oh, it's another in my pocket. Okay. And it 100% makes me a better dad. Now, the times in my life where I know I can't use it that I end up looking forward to. Mostly it is, because I play like amateur baseball. Like, I have to always make this clarification, not softball, like actual pretty serious old man, wood bat baseball. And we're serious enough and it's competitive enough that generally what happens is that I'll get there. I put my phone, like during warmups, I put my phone in my bat bag, and I will usually not take it out until the game is over. And so that between warmups and whatever, that usually affords me about 3 hours and I really do. I don't think of it as I think of it as I'm going to play baseball, and it's such great stress relief because I don't have to think about anything else. But when I really think about it, I realize it's awesome because I get to play baseball and I love baseball. But if I were doing anything fully engrossing where I couldn't be fully engrossed if I had access to my phone, and if it, also like in the dugout, like if you take your phone out, guys understand if like there's something going on at home. But if you come in and you like start scrolling, like that would be uncool. People would be offended. They'd be like, dude, we're trying to win a baseball game here.
Is that Instagram story or that TikTok really,
so like you don't do that. And I find myself like that is, I think, equally useful to me in removing stress. It's just like the vacation from it. Or like I haven't been on a cruise in a long time. But like when, I remember when I would do that, it'd be, oh, okay, this is really nice. Or like sometimes when the Wi-Fi doesn't work in the plane,
glorious.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm irritated. And then after a few minutes of like reading a book, or whatever,
watching a movie, whatever.
Listening to a podcast that I had downloaded, but I'm not looking at my phone. I am like, this is really nice. I kind of hope it and is. I'll be like, I hope it doesn't start working because I know that if it does, I'm going back to the thing. So, and I definitely think from a communal experience standpoint. Now the downside is the Masters is the Masters, right? So they can do this and they're not worried about the marketing, the word of mouth, the social stuff. People are gonna, everybody knows the Masters is going on. But if you did this for like a Padres A's game in July, you're losing the, being tagged at the stadium, the, all that good social stuff. But I think that there's a workaround for that. And I'm monologuing here, so I'll stop talking in a second. But the workaround for that is I recently went to an Aziz Ansari show. Where he came to Kansas City 2 years ago, and it was the deal where you had to lock your phone up and the thing and all that. And then this year we got in there and he wasn't doing that. And he was honest about it. He was like, yeah, it's really expensive. So I stopped doing it. He said, but I would appreciate it if you all don't use your phone during the show. And here's what he did. He said, but I get it. You want to get your shots for Instagram, and I want you to put this on Instagram. He's like, so everybody get your phone out. He did this at the beginning. He's like, and I'm going to give you some poses. And you can, and he would like do one where he's like laughing, and then he did one where he's like this, and then he did one where he's in the front and he had a guy stand up and he's like, all right, I'm going to be like berating this guy, and you can post this and say like, this guy was unruly and got kicked out. You know what? He did all that. And then he was like, okay, we've done it all. You can post it to social later. Let's do the show. Like, that's kind of an interesting approach too.
Yeah. I think you're totally right that social media in particular is part of the experience of anything now, essentially. Right. And so, and it's key to the marketing of sports, and it's the key to the communal experience, honestly, of sports. So it's hard to say that you should put it away, or it's hard to say that it should be mandated that you put it away, because the teams actually want you to do it. I think for the most part of the leagues want you to do it. With that said, communal in-person experiences are few and far between now. Well, social media-less ones. And honestly, not social media ones are becoming less and less common. And so I do like the idea of forcing that. And, we're not going to get into this too deep in this podcast, but I think about my son, also 4 years old, when he goes to school, which is the next frontier, I think, for this. And I think by the time our kids get to high school, I don't think there will be phones in school for this exact same reason. It's like, you want people to be fully present. And let's be honest, everybody listening to this podcast if you don't think this, you're lying to yourself. you are not fully present when
No.
you're on your phone. It's just not possible to do it.
You haven't been, whoever you are watching this, listening to this, you haven't been fully present in a decade. Like, I'm sorry. Like, very
true.
few of it. I mean, I'm kidding. Like, if you've had intercourse, you have. Okay, congratulations, you did that. But I mean, for the
Unless
most
you're
part,
on OnlyFans.
yeah, there's not a lot of fully present moments anymore. And when I look at the research Philip did here, the PGA Championship, the US Open, the Open Championship, what they all have in common in terms of their rules is they are all about, sort of they're not about this communal experience part so much. Like, allowing mobile phones as long as they're kept in silent mode and the flash is turned off. Well, that's more of a visual thing, right? You got to be 100 yards away from the competition to make or receive calls. The phone has to be smaller than a certain size at the US Open. At the Open Championship, it means you can bring them, but you can't photograph or film. And then you go back to like the incidents like Phil Mickelson when he was interrupted 3 times by a ringing phone. So that's more what it's around. But I think what we're more talking about is the communal experience part of it. And I think the question here is like, to what degree are we interested in going on social media scavenger hunts versus having experiences as fans?
Yeah.
And we don't want everything to be a social media scavenger hunt,
No.
Anyway, I'm for it, which is easy for me to say when I'm not at an event where someone's asking me to put away my phone. Frankly, a big part of the reason I have not been able to get into yoga is because it's dang hard to not look at my phone for that long, particularly if I want to do yoga at home. I kind of got to use my phone, and then it's like I keep having to pick up my phone to do this thing that doesn't involve my phone, and it's very confusing. All right. Number 2, Colorado is retiring the jerseys of quarterback Shedeur Sanders and wide receiver / cornerback Travis Hunter ahead of the NFL draft, which caused uproar. Adisa, do you have the outline in front of you? Do you want to just take us through
Yeah,
this
I
one?
do. Yeah. So Colorado, obviously Deion Sanders, head coach, has become a really prominent college football program. Previously to these 2 players who are both going to go in the top, probably in the first round of the draft in a couple of days, Colorado's previously retired just 4 numbers. Most recently in Rashaan Salam, who won the Heisman back when we were in high school. He played for Colorado from 92 to 94 and passed away, and his jersey was retired in 2017. Colorado last won the national championship in 1990. I think they split it with Georgia Tech, if I remember correctly. And many players from the 1990 team, obviously with only 4 numbers retired, have not had their jersey retired. And so, the athletic director of Colorado said the decision was made because Sanders and Hunter led the team back to national prominence. Sure. Fine. I think that might be more Deion Sanders than them, but that's neither here nor there. And so David Pollack, who's I think an ESPN commentator, said, "I don't understand this at all. I'm going to throw some names out to you. Joe Burrow's at LSU, not retired. Tim Tebow at Florida, not retired. Cam Newton at Auburn, not retired. Jameis Winston, national championship at Florida State, not retired. Mariota at Oregon, not retired." So point is, Shedeur Sanders, 13-12 at Colorado. That's his record, and wasn't an All-American. Not going to be the first pick in the draft. Why do it? And obviously, former Buffaloes players. We can put some tweets up on the screen for the video watchers here. Have commented, I think, negatively about this, to say the least. It does seem like a PR stunt, but maybe we're overvaluing what the and another player here says maybe we're overvaluing what the Hall of Fame means or the Ring of Honor means. This former player says it's loud, but they're saying Shedeur Sanders or Travis Hunter, who did win the Heisman, deserves it eventually, but why before they're even drafted and have a pro career seems a little weird. Do I care that much? No. Do I think it's ridiculous? Yes. Everything now is, we're in an instant gratification culture. You've said it multiple times on this podcast in the past. And I don't think this is entirely about promoting the Colorado program and promoting their 2 most prominent athletes right now and using that as a tool to recruit new players and build the program's stature. And but who cares who's in the Hall of Fame at some level other than the Colorado alums? And if they get pissed off enough about it, the policies will change.
Yeah, I have a different take on this, which is I think they should have gone further. I think that one, I do agree with the commentators who have said that they're probably doing a disservice to Shador, because the concern, obviously, that NFL teams that are considering drafting Shador is like, is he going to be bigger than our organization? Is he, you know what I mean? So like to do this right before the draft, I'm not sure is helpful to his draft stock, because even though he may have nothing to do with it, it kind of looks like he's coming into the draft looking like he thought he was bigger than the college he's coming out of, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think that's helpful to him, particularly as it appears like some of his draft stock may be sliding a little. And then you're also like, if it's true, some of the rumors, and also, I would like to say, a huge Coach Prime fan. I'm all in on all of it. I went full bandwagon this year. I did everything but get like a Colorado, because I still also grew up in the time when there was like still, the conferences worked out in a way where like Mizzou and Colorado. So I couldn't full on like dress in Colorado garb, but like I got close, and so, to me, like this doesn't change any of that. But I do think that if you are like a GM or a head coach at a program in the NFL, and you're like, okay, I'm going to bring in this guy, but am I also like bringing in Coach Prime without an official role? What's that going to do to that dynamic? And if if you believe the stuff about how he was pushing for this to happen, then I could see where that's unhelpful to Shador. I don't think it matters for Hunter, because I think nobody really questions much whether Travis Hunter is going to be tremendous added value to the team, and also because the way he was been portrayed in like the unscripted stuff that Amazon has done around Colorado, I mean, he's portrayed as a guy who just likes to go fish and play football. And so that stuff's not surrounding him,
And it's also like, Travis Hunter is Shohei Ohtani, like, of college football. Like,
exactly.
He without question, he is one of the, if not the most prominent, and will continue to be years, decades into the future, Colorado football alums. Like, period, right? Who else can I even think of other than Cordell Stewart at this point?
Right.
Like, I obviously can't name a single one, and I think that'll be true 20 years from now. Shador is the bigger problem, because not only is he more arguable, but also lower, like all the things you said, and also Coach Prime's son, which looks and is Nepo, whether you like it or not. But ultimately, like I said, it's a PR stunt. It's a PR stunt maybe to help them in their draft. It's a PR stunt to help promote Colorado football, and they're both good. I mean, Travis Hunter is a transcendently good college player, or was, and Shador Sanders was a plenty good player. And I agree that the biggest problem here is that it is probably not helping Shador, to be compared to Travis Hunter, who was just better than him, at least objectively,
and everyone else.
What he did, and and
I mean,
exactly,
it's not a knock. He was better than everyone. That's why he got the Heisman.
And all those names that Pollock talked about, right? Quarterbacks
who
are stars.
Is his number retired at Colorado?
I think it's got to be, just because of that one pass against.
He's got a whole punctuation mark named after.
Yeah, I'm looking it up right now. It's got to be. Of all the four, we'll have Philip look this up. But if he's not, then I might change everything.
Then it's an outrage.
Then it's an outrage, but it's not an outrage.
Here's my hot take on this. My hot take is we should be retiring more numbers in every sport. I think retiring numbers is the coolest. I'm such a fan of it. If I were the folks at Colorado and I wanted to do this for publicity reasons, I would have done it in a batch, and I would have brought back folks from the national championship team, and I would have retired there. And I'd say, we're going to do a big ceremony. We're going to retire their numbers too. And I would have, celebrate the history of the program with the new direction of the program. I would have, not to retire Shiloh Sanders' number, but to honor Coach Prime, I would have retired 21. And I would have said, like, and I would say his son will be the last one to wear it. We're not retiring the number for him. We're retiring it for the coach, because he's turned around our program. I would lean into these people turned around our program narrative. And I did, and because you already retired 2, which was his college number and his son's number. You're retiring 12, which is the reverse of 21 and Travis Hunter's number. I mean, it's very clear that that's how Cordell Stewart's number is not retired. Now it's not.
Oh, okay. Okay, now I'm pissed. For the young guns listening or watching this podcast, you got to go back and watch some of Cordell's highlights from when he was at Colorado. Again, before this iteration of Colorado football, he and Rashaan Salam are the only Colorado players that mattered. And Cordell Stewart had a good pro career too, but the throw against Michigan alone should get him in the Hall of Fame. I'm with you. They could have done this in a better way, and we'll get into more of that when we talk about Nico Harrison in our deep dive later. But it's not necessarily the doing of it; it's the manner in which you do it that sometimes gets you in trouble.
But in general, I think teams at all levels should retire more numbers. I mean,
I'm for it.
In the NFL, it's a 53-man roster, which means you have room to retire 47 numbers. Now, you probably want to save some room, so maybe you don't retire more than like 30. But NFL teams retire so few numbers, right? I get it. It's an honor to wear 88 for the Cowboys, but damn it, like Michael Irvin's number should be retired, and so I believe in that. I think that baseball teams should retire. I mean, good God, you only have a 26-man roster. You should retire a lot more numbers.
Anyway, I agree. And I actually also think that you might as well just retire them, but not actually cause the player, or not actually retire them in the sense that nobody else can wear them. Because I've seen this in other instances as well. The player who has their number retired will allow somebody to wear their number after they're retired, and they come back and they want to do it. I forget where this happened exactly, but I like that idea too, right? Obviously they have to be alive and blah, 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 but maybe wait until they're passed away and then that number gets unretired. There are other ways to do this, but the idea that you have to be like the greatest of the great players is I think a little antiquated as the leagues get older, and B, let's be honest, it's not necessarily true. It's not just that you're a great player; it's that you do something special for the program.
Yeah, you had a great moment,
special for the team. You had a great, Dwight Clark for the Niners or what have you. Those are, I mean, I'm sure great players, but it's about the catch, or it's about Travis Hunter playing two ways, even though he's a great player, et cetera, et cetera. So they're much ado about nothing, I still think, but also a good reason why we're talking about it. There's something here to about jersey retirements of Hall's rings of honor that I think they matter. They matter to programs, they matter to teams, they matter to cities.
There's just certain times where you see a guy wearing a number for a certain team and you're like, that doesn't look right. Bo Jackson finished with the Royals in 88, 89. And since then, lots of very good players have worn 16. And every time I see a player wear, I think right now Renfroe wears 16. Every time I just think of Bo Jackson. And even though it was not a long career, come on, and 34 should be retired on the Raiders if it's not. And anyway, so.
And no one should ever wear 30 for the Golden State Warriors ever again. That's for sure. At least
100%. And that'll happen. I mean, that'll happen.
So,
sure,
anyway.
Anyway. Okay. You want to do this next one?
Yeah. Well, we're back to, according to Federal Elections Committee filings that happened earlier this week, pro sports figures are donating heavily to the Trump inaugural committee. Front Office Sports analyzed the records of the FEC reports this past week and found more than 15 million donations to the Trump inaugural committee came from team owners, betting companies, other sports figures. The inaugural committee, which I think folks here may know, can accept from individuals, is under the same rules as campaigns, but it raised more than $239 million for the Trump inaugural, which is more than double the previous record of $107 million set by Trump in his first inauguration. Some folks who I can't believe these are the first people we're gonna name, but some folks who contributed to the Trump inaugural include the Dallas Mavericks owner Miriam Adelson and Houston Rockets owner Tillman Fertitta, as if I needed another reason to be against the Rockets this week with my Warriors playing them. They each donated $1 million. Chicago Cubs co-owner Todd Ricketts and his mother Marlene and father Joe combined for $1.6 million. The Oak View Group which manages hundreds of sports venues, including the home of the Seattle Storm and Kraken in the Pacific Northwest, 250,000. The DeVosses, who own the Orlando
Can I
Magic,
point out that
$1 million.
they play at Climate Pledge Arena? They manage sports venues, including Climate Pledge Arena. Anyway,
yeah, maybe a little internal.
It's just irony. I don't know.
Yeah, irony. There you go. Linda McMahon, the Secretary of Education, and WWE co-founder. The list goes on and on. And I think the point here, there's for the viewers can see it there. The point here is pretty, 15 million out of 230 million is not nothing that are directly attributable to sports owners, teams, etc. And FanDuel and DraftKings, obviously, $1 million between them as well. So, what do you think of this, Jason? What does this say about our politics, about sports? Is it about right lean? Is it something different?
Look, we're living in a patronage world at the moment where it's sort of, if you you're almost paying for protection. It's sad. It's sort of like, hey, look, when the guy comes by your store at a certain time every Friday, you either give a piece of the earnings or you're going to get trouble. Like there's a piece of that going on with the Trump administration. Here's what I would say about this. And this is what I will say about the intersection of fandom, sports fandom, and politics generally, or at least how I handle it. I compare it to the way I handle music. All right. There's some pretty credible allegations against Michael Jackson. Okay. I'm going to say there's video with R. Kelly. We as a society, I think pretty well decided that we're not going to listen to R. Kelly's music anymore. But we kind of as a society decided we're still going to listen to Michael Jackson's. And I think that's because there's more of it and it's better. I think people were like, I could part with this. I don't know if I can part with this. And I think that's okay. And my argument is once those songs became interwoven with my childhood and my memories, they ceased to belong in a way to Michael Jackson. Yeah. And they belong to me. And those moments belong to me. And I feel the same way about sports. As has been well discussed on the other podcast that I do with Ravi, Majority 54, mostly by Ravi, the kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs, Harrison Butker, has a political action committee and is very much like a right-wing Trump guy, does a lot of stuff with Josh Hawley. I cheer for Harrison Butker. I'm a Chiefs fan. And that doesn't make me a hypocrite. That makes me a person who doesn't feel obligated to make everything about what he does, but instead to make it about how it affects my life. When Harrison Butker makes a field goal in a crucial moment, that's exciting for me as a Chiefs fan, and I have given myself permission to just enjoy that happening and not, now look, personal conduct stuff is different, right? Deshaun Watson, that's a whole other territory, okay? That's like, there's a moral question, all right? But if it's just what their political views are, and by the way, these owners are rich people who, whether they own sports teams or not, rich people oftentimes are going to have a different political agenda than you because you're not necessarily as rich as they are. The players are children, all right? Like they're children who are still fighting their way in life, and they probably got rich at a very young age, and they're going to vote the way people who get rich at a very young age often vote. It's okay. It doesn't have to affect whether you enjoy sports. That's my take on it.
It's a mature take. I think we talked about this in previous episodes in different contexts about teams going to the White House when invited by Trump versus Biden or Obama, and how I think in the first Trump term, we perhaps went too far in not taking your advice and sort of conflating these two things. I do think it does show that there's less stigma with associating yourself with Trump this time. I think, because he won a second time despite January 6th and everything he did the first term and COVID, et cetera, et cetera. And that's sad to me at some level because I do think that we should keep that stigma at some level that that it's not okay. It's, the normalization I think is overused in the discussions about the president, but it's a good thing to make there be a transaction cost of doing business with a guy who's a wannabe authoritarian. But by the same token, we can't expect our sports figures, and certainly not, to your point, our sports owners,
right,
to share our politics about everything. And this is a transaction. I mean, let's be honest, it's a transaction. It is. We can't be. I can't believe there's gambling going on in this establishment. Like, we can't be shocked that, especially folks who represent big, valuable corporate interests in America are Republican leaning. Like, duh, they've been that way for my entire life.
Or at least you're just incumbent leaning sometimes.
True,
you know what I mean?
Good point. They probably
gave a lot of these folks business.
Gave to the Biden inauguration, I'm guessing, or Biden administration, certainly, or at least engaged because they had to. He's in charge. So it's not unlike the visiting the White House thing. It's sad because I don't like the fact that Trump is being treated just like any other Republican, but I also I don't know if I can expect more from people who are not, whose entire livelihood depends on this, and B, aren't as engaged as we are. It's our job in some ways to create the pressure around this. Our job as putting my political hat on, to create the pressure around it, but we can't just expect it to be so.
And we have to remember that most Americans consume politics the way they consume sports, which is at a distance, right? And that is to say, most Americans are they'll follow it, they're aware of it, they don't think about it all day. All right.
Yeah.
And it's okay if you want to follow sports that way and not have them get wrapped together, and you can still take a lot from it. I'm from here in Kansas City, 5th generation. I grew up here. George Brett retired when I was 12 years old. And I have had, in that period, I've had two true as childhood, male heroes. Okay. One was my dad, who never let me down. And the other was George Brett. And now, I live here in Kansas City, and I, can travel in certain circles. I know George Brett a little bit. The guy's a huge Republican. All right. But I'm still, when I play baseball, I wear number 5. Okay. I wear George Brett's number. 5 is an animating number to this day in my psyche, in my life. But I also understand George Brett was a rookie when he was with the Royals, and the guy who was in charge of selling radio ad time for the Royals, do you know who it was when George Brett came to the Royals? Rush Limbaugh. Yeah. Okay. And they became good friends. And George Brett, who all he had done at that point in his life was play baseball and get paid a lot of money to do it, like most people in that situation, was I guess I'm a Republican. Am I going to spend my whole life faulting George Brett for that? No. Am I going to go out of my way to talk about politics with George Brett? No, because it doesn't make me feel good about the way I remember feeling about George Brett as a kid. But still, watching George Brett taught me so much about hustle. He's the guy who would hit a one-hopper to the pitcher and then run as hard as he could to first base, knowing he was going to be out. Those memories don't become false because of it, right?
Yeah.
And it's so I just think there's, if you're going to wear a political jersey when you're trying to root for the guys or gals in certain sports jerseys, man, it's just confusing. It's okay to take a break sometimes,
Well, I think that's actually a good pivot into our 4th conversation with someone who
I totally contradict myself.
Continues to disappoint us in his off the field life. Aaron Rodgers once again managed to piss everyone off following a interview on the Pat McAfee show. Let's start it off with a clip.
Different phase of my life. I'm 41 years old. I'm in a serious relationship. I have off the field stuff going on that requires my attention. I have personal commitments I made, not knowing what my future was going to look like after last year, that are important to me. And I have, a couple of people in my inner circle who are really battling some difficult stuff. So I have a lot of things that are taking my attention, and have beginning in really January, away from football.
Boy, I mean, if you just
ayahuasca
play that clip,
enthusiast.
yeah, it says on the screen. If you just play that clip, I mean, just a swell, genuine guy, you know?
Yeah. And actually, I think I'm glad we started with that clip though, because that's a totally fine position to take. Like, in fact, it's an admirable position to take at some level.
Yeah.
But big but coming up here, right? Rodgers, as I think everybody here knows, was cut from the Jets following the hiring of their new coach, Aaron Glenn. And he's been in this limbo now since being cut. Draft is in 2 days. Still don't know if he's going to be on a team. The Steelers, in particular, seem to be the team that he's playing footsie with. But let's now run this clip of Aaron Rodgers talking about the day he got cut from the Jets on Pat McAfee.
His sheet and goes, "So do you want to play football?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm interested." And he said, "We're going a different direction at quarterback." And I said, and I was kind of shocked. Now, not shocked because I didn't think that was a possibility. Listen, of course, they want to move on. That's totally fine. But shocked because I just flew across country. You could have told me this on the phone. If we weren't even going to have a conversation, and this is verbatim exactly how it happened. So I said, "Huh?" And he goes, "We just want to know how you want it released, the messaging." And I said, verbatim, "I don't give a shit about the message." And I said, "Why?" And then he said, "I don't want to be up in front of the room saying something and have guys looking back at you."
I mean, first of all, like if that's true, like it is troubling, I guess, that it would have gone down that way. But how do we know?
Yeah, A, how do we know? And B, that's not crazy for Aaron Glenn, the coach, to do it that way, right? Like, I'm sure if he had called him on the phone and be like, "You're cut," Aaron Rodgers would have gone on McAfee and been like, "He didn't even have the courtesy. Yeah, didn't even have the courtesy to sit me down." And da 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 da. Now, maybe Aaron Glenn could have been nicer in the meeting. I don't know. But for somebody who has other stuff going on and he even just said not yes, I'm interested in, or not yes, I want to keep playing football, but I'm interested in playing for the Jets, like playing it cool. Like, it's a lot of feelings for somebody who knew it was going to happen and didn't even say yes when asked the direct question. So he's playing the martyr just like he always does. And like, I respect if he wants to quit and focus on his relationship and on his life. Like, fine,
you're 41 years old. Like, it's okay if you want to stop playing professional football
but
at 41.
It's the same shit he did with the COVID vaccine and everything. It's like you're playing this game that is really just annoying. Like, at this point now, it's just annoying. It's like I think I tweeted this in 2020 at the time. It's like when people started rooting, I started rooting against him pretty vigorously. It wasn't his unwillingness to take the COVID vaccine, though that was annoying. It was his constant lying and talk and saying what did he say? Not I'm vaccinated, but I'm immunized.
Immunized, yeah.
I'm immunized and just squirreliness. The squirreliness is just so unbecoming of somebody who's one of the greatest players of all time that I'm just like, I'm over him as a person. I'd be fine if he played for the Steelers and probably stink, but like, just as a person, it's like, enough already. Just your act is wearing thin on me.
Also, like, if you currently play for a team, it's not that weird to expect you to come into the office. Like, yeah, I get it. You were somewhere else, but like he said, fly halfway across the country like he's never been there. Like, I mean, like you play for the Jets. I mean, like they're like, "Hey, can you come in and see us?"
Twist my arm, I have to go to New York. Like,
it's not that odd, right? My question really at this point is like, if you're the Steelers, why would you do this? Like, they've got you in this limbo. You're trying to decide, are we drafting a quarterback? And if we are drafting a quarterback, are we doing it for this year? What's the argument for this guy for having Aaron Rodgers on your team for 1 year is good for your locker room? I mean, the perfect model because you have to assume like you're probably still want to draft a QB or at least think you're going to move toward a QB. And the perfect model is the Mahomes Alex Smith model, right? Is that you have somebody who understands we're moving on from you, but in the meantime, we want to have one more great year with you. And can you apprentice this guy? And Alex Smith, who by all accounts, anybody I ever have known who knew him personally here in KC, anybody who's ever talked publicly about it, just like
Incredible
a model person, right?
Yeah.
And Alex Smith was like Mahomes still talks about, I owe a lot of my career to what I learned from Alex Smith, right? Is there a world in which Aaron Rodgers does that for somebody? I just don't think there is. I don't understand why, even if you're the Steelers, why you're considering this. I don't think it puts many butts in the seats. I don't think it helps season ticket sales.
That's the only. I mean, the latter is the only reason to do it. And if Mike Tomlin does not seem like the kind of coach who will tolerate the Aaron Rodgers act,
right? How would that go?
On top of all that, that doesn't feel like it would go very well. So. But it's all Aaron Rodgers has got left, so he's playing it. And I guess the Steelers, they don't have many options left either. They were the musical chairs player that was left standing at the end of the QB cycle this offseason. So I agree with you, though. I just think he doesn't even seem that into it, right? From the first clip. So why just retire and go on and do your thing, bro, and go to your ayahuasca retreats and more power to you. I hope you succeed in the rest of your life. I truly mean that, but I don't need to see him on a football field. I definitely don't need to see him on Pat McAfee every week, just doing the same tired act. Please, let us all be.
At this point, Rodgers is retiring, right? I mean, the idea that he's going to go through this whole, I don't know if I want to play football, and then come, and then it's just, it doesn't make sense to me. But all right, now, the segue, I guess, would be that if there's a possibility the Steelers are going in the direction of hey, we may not be as competitive this year, we'll make ourselves competitive for the future. The best example of that, I would argue, to have been done that correctly in our fifth segment here is the Oklahoma City Thunder, which managed to go from last place to an NBA juggernaut in record time. GM Sam Presti traded veterans Chris Paul, Steven Adams, Danilo Gallinari, and Dennis Schroeder. Although, doesn't he pronounce it different because it's
Schroeder?
Yeah, Schroeder. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Hit a big shot yesterday for the Pistons.
Yeah. Billy Donovan left the Thunder for the Bulls. Presti elevated a no-name. God, I'm a fan, but I can't do all the last names.
Mark Dagno. He might win the Coach of the Year.
Yeah, and I just have avoided until this moment having to pronounce his name in public. And handed the keys to the franchise to SGA. See, that's how I get around it with him. After trading George and later Westbrook and Chris Paul, Presti hit the reset button and went all in on tanking. He traded any available assets for picks, stockpiling a whopping 17 future first-rounders through 2026, clearing the runway for SGA to become the franchise player. Shortcuts cut long runs short, Sam Presti said in the spring of 2021, and we're going to do everything in our power not to allow that to happen. So the improvement they've made in the 2020-2021 season, the Thunder were the 14th seed in the 2020, or we'll just say in the 20
out of 15 to be clear.
Yeah, out of 15. Then 14th.
14th seed is a very nice way to say they sucked.
Yeah, 14th again in 22, and then in 23, 10th. And then the Thunder won 40 games, a 16-game jump in the 2022-2023 season, and made the play-in. And then last season, way before they thought they'd be able to do this, they had a 17-game improvement, 57 wins. They were the number one seed, and then they had their first playoff win, their first playoff series win of the era. And then this season, an 11-game improvement. They are the seventh team in NBA history to win 68 games. By point differential, they are the most dominant team of all time. SGA is the likely MVP. Lou Dort, a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Kenrich Williams, the Thunder's no-nonsense veteran, are the only three holdovers from year one of the rebuild. They have the fourth youngest roster at 24.1 years. It includes the MVP favorite, they have the sixth lowest payroll, and the 10th lowest team valuation. So
that's incredible.
My point is,
that's an incredible stat.
Is this the way to do it?
Yeah, it's remember the Sixers going through the process, which kind of sort of worked, right? They got Joel Embiid, they got Ben Simmons, which worked until it didn't work. Markelle Fultz was a swing and a miss. Who else? Jabari, I'm blanking on his name, the center from Duke, was a swing and a miss. But it's been tried before. Tanking and rebuilding has been tried, even by Sam Presti himself. But this is about as good as it gets. It took them 4 years to go from basically the worst team in the league to historically dominant. 4 years. It gives hope. It should give hope to any fan of any team, especially in the NBA that sucks. Right? It does not take that long, but you need a little luck and a little smarts, and Sam Presti has certainly gotten both. So it is. They. Did you watch the game on Sunday by any chance?
I
When they
watched a good
played
portion of
against
it, and it
Memphis?
was a rout. I was flipping
I
between
mean,
it and the Royals.
they were up by 56 points at one point, and they won by 51.
They were up by they had double the score of the Grizzlies at the half, and then they went on a 10-0 run to start the second half.
After that, at one point it was I think it was like they were up. Yeah, they were up by 56 and had more than doubled. They didn't end up doubling. I forget what the final score was, but anyway, point
like
is
130
they're gonna
to 86 or something.
they're gonna sweep the Memphis Grizzlies, and that's fine. But the bigger point here is Sam Presti is an incredible. He's 47 years old. First of all, he's our age, which is like, and he's been a GM for basically for a decade now. Has done such a remarkable job of reconstructing a team, but the only way he did it was stripping it down to the studs, trading everybody, and then
loading up on draft picks too.
Loading up on draft picks, and then he hit the jackpot with SGA, which he got in a trade for Paul George. Which, by the way, that trade is going to go down as probably the most lopsided trade in sports history.
But nobody
even more than
thought
the Luka
that
Doncic
then.
trade. At the time, no, I can't blame the Clippers. Like, I get what they were doing, but to give up a future MVP and picks for Paul George, and like lots of picks for Paul George, is pretty crazy. So it's a cautionary. I think the NBA is the league where this is most likely to happen. There's too much parity in the NFL. There's you don't have transcendent stars like this in baseball. That even Shohei Ohtani still only bats 5 times a game. And SGA has the ball every single play.
And can do whatever he wants. Can we just appreciate for a minute? I love watching the dude because you're like, what does he want to do this possession? He'll just do whatever he wants.
He even didn't have a good game. He didn't have a terrible game, but he scored 15
by
points.
A country mile.
And they won by 56. So they are probably going to win the title. Sorry to my Warriors, but it's true. I mean, it'd be not unlike the Warriors losing in 2016. It would be that level of upset if they didn't win. In my opinion, even though the Celtics are really good, the Cavs are really good, other teams in the West are really good. But the scary thing is that they have not reaped all the benefits of these trades yet. They still have a ton of picks.
And that's why
they still have, what was the number payroll they have? They have the sixth lowest payroll. Like, they could win the next 5. I mean, it's not going to happen because the NBA, someone gets injured, whatever. But like, it is completely conceivable that they win 3, 4, 5 championships in a row.
Adisa, this is why I think that they are the model of a rebuild / a tanking in order to get good, because they have not done what they've not done is we're going to tank so that we can win a championship. They've done it so they can build a long-term contender. And I will tell you sort of my personal journey with this. Like, I'm an NBA free agent, always have been. Like, Kansas City doesn't have a team. I was like every other kid in the country, particularly kids who didn't have an NBA franchise in their town growing up. Like, I had Jordan jerseys. We watched like, that's what we did. Right. And then, I got like into my 30s and was like, I'm kind of into the NBA. And then I did what a lot of people did. Just like when I was a kid, I was like, wherever LeBron is, I'm for that. Right. And I still I would love to see the Lakers go far. And I love seeing, and I've traveled to watch LeBron play, like I'm 100%, I'm full admission of like a bandwagon guy as far as that goes. But in 2018, I became friends with, he's known as Mr. Thunder, Nick Collison. He's, speaking of numbers retired, it's the only number the Oklahoma City Thunder has ever retired. And it's because Nick, who had played at KU, moved back to Kansas City at the end of his career. And it turned out we had like a mutual friend who used to be would report on the NBA. And I guess he had like, followed me through politics. And like, somebody was like, you all should know each other. He's moving back to Kansas City. So we started hanging out. He's a great guy. He's a buddy of mine. And I was like, oh, well, this is a great, and the Thunder is the closest, Oklahoma City's the closest to Kansas City anyway. And I was kind of thinking, and I had sort of followed them a little bit when they had Durant and Nick and Westbrook and, and that's a good example of where they made a run, almost won the championship. And like, it would have been easy to be like, let's try and get back to that instead of building long-term. anyway, so then Nick started working in the front office, and I have been down there to go to a couple games. It's great. I sit in the seats right under Nick's number, and like, it's fun. And I took my son, and he will imitate Lou Dort, and it's a blast. Also, by the way, seeing a game in Oklahoma City is incredible because Oklahoma City, other than having the Dodgers, I think, AA team, doesn't really have anything else in terms of professional sports. And so it's really much more like a college environment. Like people are, I mean, they love the Thunder. And anyway, so I was like, well, I'm a fan now. And then I watched him go through it, and I would, without saying anything out of school, like I was able to talk to Nick about how sometimes they were maybe good even before they expected. And then I started for my job working on a nonprofit thing that I was working on doing in Oklahoma City. And so Nick and I sat down with Presti on a totally, not on basketball stuff. And I had basically a one-on-one with Presti and was so impressed. This is like 5 years ago with the dude's like truly ground level knowledge of like the sort of public affairs landscape of how to navigate Oklahoma City to do good, and was like, I'm all in on this dude and whatever he's trying to do. So that's why I wanted to talk about this. Like, he has re-engineered tanking to become good because it's not like a short-lived pleasure cruise. Like, they're going to be good for a long time now.
A lot. And, they drafted well, they traded well, they stockpiled well. They weren't afraid to strip it down to the studs and tell he did this in Philadelphia too, but like to tell the world that that's what we're going to do and have them accept, look, we're doing this for a reason, but we're building up the young guys. And here they are, 24 years old. That's crazy. 24 years old, average age with the sixth lowest payroll and historically good team, better than the 73-9 2016 Warriors point differential. I mean, I just hope they have health. I hope SGA wins the MVP. And honestly, I hope the Warriors get them in the conference finals because actually, fun fact, before we pivot to a general manager who maybe doesn't deserve as much praise as Sam Presti, Warriors beat OKC in the season series this year 2-1. The only team I think in the league who beat them. So that was way back. I mean, we're going to get creamed probably if it happens. But
did we just play no Canadians in that series? What happened? Like we.
Yeah, it's true. Shea, Dort, right? You got a lot, right?
It's crazy. I mean, we got a couple of guys with almost the same name. Like, it's such a fun team. Like,
it's a great team. It's a great team and really fun to watch. Anybody who hasn't really watched the Thunder, like, watch them kill the Grizzlies by 50 again tonight or whenever the next game is, because they're for real.
All right.
And you know who's not for real? No, I shouldn't shit on a guy who's got a tough job, honestly. But we're gonna do some analysis right now, some political analysis. Go ahead, Jason.
Yes, we're gonna do this from a political standpoint. So, okay, while the Thunder is a great example of a team to embody, the Mavericks appear to be sort of falling apart 1 year removed from an NBA Finals appearance, and General Manager Nico Harrison's recent presser is not helping things. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you a little background, and then Adisu and I, as certified political professionals and communication professionals, are going to go through this press conference and sort of look at it like game film. So the Mavericks, again, coming off a 2024 NBA Finals appearance, were 26-23 before trading Luka Doncic, and then lost 20 of their final 33 games to finish 39-43. Good for 10th place. An alarming number of injuries arguably derailed Dallas' season, but so too did the Doncic trade. This entire PR nightmare would have been preventable if Harrison had just had his press conference about this trade in Dallas immediately after it took place, or at least it would have been less bad, probably. But instead, he waited until like the last 2 weeks to start speaking about the Luka trade, and it really has negatively refocused everyone's eyes on that once again. So we're going to go through a few videos. So video number one.
It's also worth, actually, before we do it, I want to say, in addition to it was a case study in bad crisis comms, but not only did they not talk out loud about this until the last 2 weeks, really, but also clearly planted some oppo about Luka in various publications with friendly reporters, which is a time-honored tradition in politics, but it was so heavy-handed and just tone deaf in those first couple of weeks. Like, he's fat, and he was out of shape, and this, that, and the other. And it's like, okay, Nico Harrison
play defense.
Yeah, it's like, oh, everybody knows that. And he also averaged a triple-double last year, so whatever. So it was really messed up even coming into this press conference from yesterday. Go ahead.
All right, let's go through these. Video number one is Charles Barkley's comments on. Actually, let's save this, Philip. Let's do this last. Let's do Barkley's take last. Let's just start with video number two, which is confronting him about the fans' position on the job he's doing.
Almost hate. I have to say the word. How do you deal with that? How are you dealing with that? One, and then two, do you understand how they feel? I think they want to know that you feel their pain about losing Luka. What can you say to them?
Well, when you have 20,000 people in this stadium chanting "Fire Nico," you really feel it. I mean, I use the word awesome, but not in a positive way. Like, you can really feel how they feel. So yes, I feel them. How am I doing? I'm good. You know, I said this last week. God's got me covered. I have an amazing family and an amazing support group to get through it. But no, I absolutely feel it. But I'm also, you know, my job is to make decisions that I feel are in the best interest of this organization, and I got to stand by the decision. And some of them are going to be unpopular, and this was clearly one that's unpopular.
Okay, Nico. Sorry, I almost got you, Nico. Adisu, let's start with this. Can you grade that answer? Sort of like, how do you do, and where do you mess up or not, or do well?
It was a B. It wasn't terrible. I think trying to pivot into, you know, his relationship with God and his family generates some sympathy, but he still didn't seem to quite get it. What do you think?
Yeah, I feel like he was initially kind of making a stab at doing the right, but when he acknowledged, like, yeah, I listened to them chant "fire me," and you know that doesn't feel good and all that. So that was like, I'm acknowledging that I hear them, but he's not saying anything there to make them feel heard. And if you think about, you know, what the question was, it's, do you feel their pain? And I think the problem may be that he doesn't. I'm not sure, but if you do at all, I think it's important when people are mad at you in an individual interaction or in a interaction with a large group of people, it is important to acknowledge that you can see how, or you can sort of empathize with how they're feeling. And so if it were me, I might have said, look, you try and put yourself in their shoes and just say, like, you know, from their perspective, I absolutely understand. And then talk about how they're feeling and say, like, I can see where if I were a fan of this team and I'd been invested emotionally in Luka and then he's traded this way, I can see where I might feel betrayed. I can see, like, that's how you make people feel heard. And instead he just sort of was like, I heard them, but I got a job to do.
Yeah. And we'll get into this in the fourth clip, I think, why I think he just doesn't get it. But yeah, it's a B. I think B minus. Like, it definitely wasn't his worst one of the press conference.
Not a train wreck at all.
But was not. He just doesn't get it. Which well, let's go to the next clip, which starts with just a savage question, honestly, from a reporter, but just shows just how bad he's bungled the last 2 months.
Luka comes back to town, the Lakers game's happening, and you're standing there, and there's thousands of people chanting for you to be fired. That's an experience that none of us, you know, no one's chanting for our, you know, for us to lose our jobs. Why shouldn't you be fired?
Well, one, I think I've done a really good job here, and I don't think I can be judged by the injuries this year. You have to judge from totality, from beginning to end, and so I think I have a really good working relationship with Patrick.
Okay, grade this one.
That one's like a D minus.
Yeah, that's pretty.
I don't want to give him an F because I'm saving an F for later. But what do you think?
Okay, from a communication standpoint,
grade it.
Yeah, well, it's probably an F. I mean, because the thing, and again, I'm not talking about his performance as GM so much as, like, you know, just as a communicator. If you think about the way the question was asked, the question was actually, for a savage question, asked with some degree of empathy. I mean, he was the reporter was even sort of preempting the natural thing, which is like, well, you're in this position, I'm not. and like I have to show some respect for that. Like none of us here in the press gallery have had to deal with something like that. And so I felt like he was sort of extending to him an opportunity, one, to make a case for himself, but two, I think to humanize himself. He was offering like, you're a human being who's gone through this. Can you tell us what that's been like? But
And
also tell us we should be ready.
He completely. It's funny. He could have used the stuff from the first answer here because, to your point, the door was open. But instead, he was just like, "I've done a good job." But the worst part of this answer, in my opinion, by far, is I have a good relationship with the owner,
right?
Which might suggest that this had an audience of one, not unlike a lot of press conferences in our politics right now, which is it's a lot of people basically trying to talk to Trump through Fox News. I think similarly, this might be Nico Harrison trying to talk to Patrick Dumont, the owner of managing owner of the Mavs. But like, I have a good relationship with the owner could not be more tone deaf. So yeah, it's an F. I'll give it again an F plus because again I'm saving an F for later. But yeah, it's just missing. He clearly feels hurt. He clearly feels like he did the right thing. Like, fine, whatever he feels. What he's missing, and he continues to miss, is the fans and how they feel, and putting himself in their shoes, and not realizing that the Mavericks organization is bigger than the owner, and it's bigger than even the employees for the Mavericks, including the players. The fans are part of the organization, and they are the fuel through which the organization and the team goes. So, yeah, it's an F. You're right.
If I were advising him as a communications consultant, what I would have said for that answer is that it would be good to again start with acknowledging the way people feel, but also you can kind of dodge that question a little bit. You could just say like, well, look, it's not up to me. You could just say, I'm in this job and I'm going to keep doing the best job that I possibly can. And I understand that some people are going to think I'm doing it well. Some people are going to think I'm doing it poorly. I can only control what I can control. And I can keep trying to do the best that I can. And if I spend my time worrying about whether or not I'm going to be fired, then I'm not doing my job very well. Like you could have just said that and move on. It wouldn't have been an A+ answer, but it would have been a reasonable answer that would be hard to argue with. But I would, if I were him, I would have said something like that. But I probably would have prefaced it with, again, I understand why people feel that way. And if I were a fan of the team and I were looking for us to, be immediately competitive at all times, then I might want that too. But as a fan, it wouldn't be my obligation to form a long-term strategy for the team either. So like something like that. It could have been better. All right, number 4 says, okay, you tee this up because this seems to be your favorite clip.
No, number 5. The next one is my favorite clip. Okay. So let's play this one, and then we'll get to the.
All right.
To my favorite.
There have been a million theories about why you did the deal. One of them was that you were told to do it. That Mr. Dumont said, "I didn't want to give the Supermax contract, which is obviously very expensive, to Luka." Were you told that you had to trade him?
No, not at all. Patrick reminds me of the leadership that I had at Nike, and a really good leader doesn't tell the people that work for them what to do. It's a collective, well thought out process to make a big move like that. And then also, unfortunately, I'm super stubborn, so someone telling me to do something doesn't work too well for me.
I felt like the first 80% of that answer was a perfectly fine, like kind of the only thing you can say.
Yeah.
And then I'm not sure why we added the thing about I'm super stubborn when that's exactly what fans seem to be worried about.
Yeah. They're not stubborn about they're stubborn about the fact that he hasn't been able to get to where we've been talking about here. And yeah, he just like volunteered that for no reason. But yeah, this was a fine answer. He doesn't seem to want, well, first of all, he was as animated as ever defending Dumont. Among these 3 answers that we've seen him are, which goes to my theory.
But also, by the way, goes out of his way to refer to him by his first name. Which you don't generally in sports, right or wrong, you don't generally see it seems to be that the tradition is that the owner is
Mr. or
referred to
whatever.
as Mr. or Mrs. or whatever.
Whatever.
And, you know, a lot of owners, including a couple I know, would say they don't like that. They don't like the formality of it. But it is interesting that he made a point of each time it was said one way to say it back another.
And also the reason why this is a fine answer but not a great one is sometimes, and this is particularly true of our politics and our environment right now, sometimes people want you to just take responsibility even if you don't think you deserve it solely. And this felt like it wasn't just me. He wasn't trying to brag about the collective nature and the deliberative nature of the decision. He was actually trying to like deflect blame.
Possibly.
You know, and possibly, right. And, you know, put some of the heat elsewhere, right. It was not just my decision. It was a decision we talked about amongst ourselves with the owner and others. And I do think that falling on your sword, this is true in marriage, this is true in like in any number of places. Like sometimes you just do it because even if you don't feel like you deserve it, it is what diffuses the moment. And that's true in politics too. Like you might not, voters don't necessarily have the capacity to stick around and learn the whole justification. And so it's better just to be like, I did it and I'm sorry, as opposed to try to explain away or do everybody's least favorite political apology, which is I'm sorry if you were offended, which kind of feels like this is like the I'm sorry if you were offended kind of answer as opposed to like the true contrition.
Okay, this next one is the one that I believe is your favorite.
F minus. So just I'm previewing it. Tee it up.
Yeah, good question. I did know that Luka was important to the fan base. I didn't quite know it to what level, but really the way we looked at it is, you know, if you're putting a team on the floor that's Kyrie, Clay, PJ, Anthony Davis, and Lively, we feel that's a championship caliber team, and we would have been winning at a high level, and that would have quieted some of the outrage.
Yeah. So there's a scene in.
Don't
42.
admit that, bro.
Yeah. Don't. Let's work backwards in the answer. Don't admit that you were aware there would be outrage and that it would be necessary to win in order to like make that outrage not so bad. There's a scene in 42 where I can't remember the name of the character. He's a real person who was, the reporter who sort of traveled with Jackie Robinson. But it's when Jackie Robinson shows up to spring training for the first time, and he's underestimating, the reporter worries, how important these questions that are about to come from all these reporters are. And the reporter says to him, you know how when you're playing and you want to see that pitch come in slow, you need to take your time and see these questions come in slow. And this was a good example of Nico Harrison did not see this pitch come in slow because he missed what the pitch was. He read this question as being sort of what part of your decision did you think was actually going to mitigate how upset people were? When in reality, the question was, the heart of the question was, did you understand how upset people would be? And that's why he just sort of,
he essentially said no to that answer, whether he likes it or not.
But
I did
dispassionately.
Yeah.
He's like, I knew, but, I didn't really, like, almost offhand, I guess
To say that I didn't understand how important Luka was to the fan base is the crux of all their anger. And he just said it out loud. Like, this is the end of the press conference here. It's like, you might as well have just shut it down right here, because all the fans wanted to hear was, he was our Dirk. He was our everything. He was our son. He was the player that we came to see. And you had to have known that, right? And he just said, I did not know that.
Right.
And like everything after that is basically, it doesn't matter I agree that team is pretty good with Kyrie and Clay and AD and whatever, et cetera, but irrelevant. Luka's bigger than what the product. First of all, they made the finals last year and won a game. So like they were 3 games away from winning the championship with the team they had. But putting all that aside, it's irrelevant. Not irrelevant. It's not the be all and end all is not the product you put on the floor. Luka meant more to the fan base than just the product he put on the floor. He was there when he was 18 years old. You saw him grow up grow up with the team. He blossomed as an individual. He's a Hall of Famer if he retired tomorrow. And he's 25 years old, and they expected him to be there for the rest of his career and to treat him. I think Dirk Nowitzki has a lot to do with how people feel about Luka, because they had this guy already, a fellow European, and they felt like they'd had him again. And he just does. He admitted in public that he did not understand that connection between Luka and the fans, and it's over. Like, that's it. If you don't understand that, you just don't get it, and you've said it out loud.
And I think the problem, it's not exclusively in the fact that he admitted that he didn't that he underestimated it. It's because I think people assumed. You know what I mean? At this point, you assume that. I mean, like, him saying that is not a shock, right? Like, it would almost be worse if he were like, "Yeah, I knew how upset they would be, but I did it anyway." Like, yes, I killed him and I'll do it again, whatever. But I think it's the way he's so casual about it. Like, it's not a big deal. Whereas it's sort of like, if you're going to say that, you've got to say, what you've got to say is, I massively underestimated how important he was to the fan base. And I can't sit here and tell you that I absolutely would have made a different decision, because I can't know that kind of thing. But I can tell you that I regret not handling it better. I certainly regret the way that the fans feel. It hurts me in my heart that the fans feel betrayed by me. I understand what they're going through. And even though I can sit here and tell you, I think that I made the best decision for this team long term, it still hurts me that I made the fans feel that way. And I don't feel good about it. Like, there's a way to lean into it and say, like, I understand your pain, but you and I are still on the same side. And everything about this answer says, like, not even like we're not on the same side. It says, like, I don't even think about whether we're on the same side.
Yeah, he keeps saying, and I'm not sure if the next clip, I think that's the last clip we have. Well, we have one more fun one, but he keeps saying my obligation is to the Dallas Mavericks, as if the Dallas Mavericks is a nameless, faceless corporation. And I'm like, it is the fans are so critical to sports.
Like, we're Dallas. We are
the Dallas Mavericks. Exactly. Like, and they are the Dallas Mavericks. And if they don't pay for tickets, and if they abandon the team, like, the Dallas Mavericks are just a basketball team that plays in an empty arena. So, like, what are we doing here? But you're right. The dispassionate way that he answers these questions is like, I've never gotten in a fight with your wife where, like, or somebody where, like, they're too calm, and you're like, no, it's like more annoying than if they were yelling at you. And that's kind of what this feels like.
Absolutely. Okay. A couple more. So this is him. He's trying to leave the press conference, but the door is locked, I guess.
Let's show it. It's
an unfortunate thing. It just happens sometimes. Nothing really.
I know.
I remember it happened to George W. Bush in a press conference once, and it's just a thing that happens.
It's just the advanced guys are now the next to get traded.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, last one. Let's see what Charles Barkley said about all this.
Nico Harrison, I consider you a friend of mine. I wish you nothing but the best. I thought you did a good job last year with the Mavs, and obviously whatever happened this year didn't work out. Man, don't do no more press conferences. Like, I don't even know what you're doing. I really don't. Like, I got sympathy and love for you, but I have zero idea what you're trying to do. This war is over, brother. You taking the L. I hope you keep your job. I hope that team get healthy, but man, don't do any more interviews. Please don't.
It's perfect. And it gets to the point of what I'm trying to do here, which is, I'm not here to criticize this dude in this really hard job, but what we bring to this show is, like, this expertise in this other world where I feel like we could be helpful to people like this.
And, I found out yesterday that they fired Nico. I don't think fired, but their PR rep had left the team around the same time that Nico Harrison came. Again, I don't know if those are connected. I don't want to speculate. But It was on Zach Lowe's new podcast I listened to yesterday, and I bet you somewhere, they're wishing that guy was around because apparently he was a great PR. But yeah, it's politics, man. This is politics. Like, this is as politics as it comes. He is in a public relations crisis of 2 months where he is the antagonist for an entire city, an entire fan base, the paying customers for his product, and continues to get it wrong. So Charles Barkley is right. I don't want him to lose his job. Like, I do think, I will say, the Mavs fully healthy, which won't happen until next spring because Kyrie tore his ACL and Anthony Davis is never healthy. But like, the Mavs fully healthy are a good team, probably definitely a playoff team. But this is bigger than that, man. And I don't think he's going to survive the summer, like, unless he really has Patrick Dumont's audience of one in his faith. But I don't want the guy. I'm like Charles. I don't want the guy to like get fired. I'm not a Mavericks fan. Like, I don't feel the same kind of connection to him. But yeah, he is not getting good advice, and he is not doing himself favors out there in public, and he might lose his job because of it.
You're totally right. It is politics, and more than that, it's local politics. And despite what people think, local politics is sometimes the hardest politics because it hits the closest to home. It's where the passions are the deepest. If you don't believe that, show up to a meeting where people are talking about whether to put in a dog park or like talk to people whose trash didn't get picked up, and that's what this is. He is, in many ways, he has a local constituency. And the thing he's in charge of is in many ways something that people are more passionate about than almost anything else in local politics. And the worst thing you can appear to be is out of touch and uncaring. I can't speak to whether the guy's out of touch. I highly doubt he's uncaring, but his problem is he's coming across that way. And that's not good.
Until he fixes that. Stay behind closed doors, brother.
All right. Well, this has been really fun. As usual. Thanks everybody for listening. And remember, sports do matter quite a lot.